Welcome to Boring History for Sleep, where we gently peel back the layers of the past to reveal the calm, often overlooked truths. Today, we're demystifying medieval marriage, a topic frequently misunderstood through the lens of modern romance novels and Hollywood. The truth is, marriage in the Middle Ages was primarily a strategic alliance, an economic partnership, and a social contract, far removed from our contemporary ideals of love and individual choice. It was less about "I do" and more about "we shall." At its core, medieval marriage was about property, power, and progeny. For the nobility, it forged crucial political alliances, secured land, and ensured heirs to continue family lines. For commoners, it was a practical arrangement for pooling resources, sharing labor, and raising children to ensure the family's economic survival. Love, while not entirely absent, was usually an emotion that developed within the marriage, rather than being its prerequisite. It was a partnership of necessity first, and perhaps affection second. Arranged marriages were the undisputed norm across all social strata. Parents, or sometimes even guardians, made decisions based on what was best for the family unit. This wasn't necessarily a cruel practice. It was seen as a responsible duty. A noble family might spend years negotiating a match, scrutinizing dowries, and drawing up detailed contracts. Even among commoners, local customs and family reputation played a huge role, often with elders guiding the choice to ensure a compatible and productive union. Contrary to popular belief, most medieval individuals did not marry as children. While betrothals could occur at a young age, often to secure future alliances, actual marriage ceremonies and cohabitation typically waited until physical maturity. The Church set minimum ages for marriage, generally 12 for girls and 14 for boys. But average ages were often higher, late teens to early 20s for women, and mid-20s to 30s for men, especially among commoners who needed to establish themselves financially. Consent in medieval marriage is a surprisingly nuanced topic. While parents arranged the match, the Church, particularly from the 12th century onwards, increasingly emphasized the voluntary consent of both parties as essential for a valid marriage. This didn't mean free choice in the modern sense, but rather that neither party could be physically forced into the union. A simple exchange of vows, even without a priest or witnesses, could, in theory, constitute a valid marriage, though this often led to disputes. Financial considerations were paramount. The dowry, a payment from the bride's family to the groom or his family, was crucial. It wasn't merely a gift. It often provided the wife with financial security within the marriage. In return, the husband would often settle a dower on his wife, which was a portion of his land or property designated for her support if she became a widow. These were not just customs, but legally binding agreements, ensuring the woman's sustenance and status. Wedding ceremonies themselves could vary greatly. For commoners, a simple exchange of vows at the church door, followed by a communal feast, was typical. Grand, elaborate spectacles were largely reserved for the wealthiest nobility and royalty, where the wedding was a public affirmation of status and alliance. White dresses were not a tradition. Brides wore their best clothes, often vibrant colors. The focus was on the legal and social recognition of the union, rather than the aesthetic fanfare we associate with weddings today. Divorce, as we understand it, was virtually non-existent in medieval Europe. Marriage was considered a sacrament, indissoluble by human law. However, annulment was possible. Annulments declared that a marriage had never been valid in the first place, usually due to impediments like pre-existing vows, too close a blood relation, consanguinity, or lack of true consent. Obtaining an annulment was a complex, lengthy, and expensive process, largely accessible only to the wealthy and powerful, often for political reasons, as seen with kings like Henry VIII. Adultery was a serious offense, particularly for women, as it threatened the legitimacy of heirs and the clarity of property inheritance. While men's extramarital affairs were often tolerated more, female adultery could lead to severe social ostracism, legal penalties, and even violence in extreme cases. Illegitimate children, while not always outcast, generally faced significant disadvantages in inheritance and social standing, reinforcing the importance of a legally recognized, faithful union. Did love exist in medieval marriages? Absolutely. While not the primary reason for marriage, affection, companionship, and even deep love often blossomed between spouses over years of shared life, responsibilities, and child-rearing. Letters and poems from the era attest to genuine emotional bonds, even within arranged unions. It was a different kind of love, perhaps, one forged through partnership and mutual respect rather than initial passion, but no less profound for it. Marriage for commoners, particularly peasants, was often a simpler affair, focused intensely on practical needs. Obtaining permission from the local lord was sometimes required, and the ceremony might be less formal, perhaps witnessed by neighbors and followed by a basic celebration. Their unions were vital for survival, as a household required both male and female labor to thrive. Without a spouse, life was considerably harder, making marriage a near universal aspiration for practical reasons. Royal and noble marriages, on the other hand, were high-stakes political chess games. They could end wars, consolidate territories, and secure future alliances. Dynastic marriages were arranged from infancy, with children sometimes sent to live in their future spouse's court. These unions were often less about the individuals and more about the crowns and lands they represented, frequently involving complex international negotiations and hefty dowries, sometimes even entire regions. The Catholic Church played an increasingly dominant role in defining and regulating marriage throughout the Middle Ages. From the 11th century onwards, it gradually asserted its authority, establishing doctrines on consent, indissolubility, and impediments. By the Council of Trent in the 16th century, the Church solidified many of these rules, making marriage a public sacrament, requiring witnesses and a priest, fundamentally shaping Western marital traditions for centuries to come. So, how does medieval marriage compare to our modern understanding? The shift from a family-centric, economic and social contract to an individualistic, love-based union is profound. While medieval marriage emphasized duty, lineage, and survival, modern marriage prioritizes personal happiness and emotional fulfillment. Yet, some echoes remain. The legal framework, public ceremonies, and the ideal of lifelong partnership still resonate, connecting us to these distant yet foundational practices. And there you have it, the calm truth about medieval marriage. It was a complex institution, deeply intertwined with the economic, social, and religious fabric of its time. Far from the romanticized tales, it was a practical, often sober undertaking, yet one that laid the groundwork for many of our contemporary marital customs. Understanding this history helps us appreciate just how much our ideas about love and partnership have evolved. Thank you for joining us on this gentle journey through the past. If you found this historical exploration soothing, consider subscribing for more boring history that helps you relax and learn.